Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South, episode 312. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be talking about the Indianapolis Colts and the AFC South. And my special guest is one half of the She Shed podcast. She definitely is an Indianapolis Colts fan as well. That'd be Miss Kaila Lewis. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Thank you for having me. Either have you on so you could talk to me and Stacy, or you just back so that we can talk with Stacy.
Got you. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to bring Stacy on because I already know. If I'm correct, that's Atlanta Falcons, right?
Correct.
Oh yeah, because I think the Atlanta Falcons play believe they play the Titans. It's next year, I believe. So it might be that rotation next year. So yeah, definitely gonna have to bring her on, talk about them, especially this offseason. And of course, definitely got to talk about the She Shed once again, which we will talk about in a second. But in every episode, like I open up, I always talk about, getting something off my chest, whether it be something that's upsetting me or something I'm excited about. But in this one, we're going to talk about a debate that has heated up just a little bit more recently, and that would be the MVP battle in the NFL. Now, a couple weeks ago, I would say, when Josh Allen was playing in Detroit and he was making those incredible throws, plenty of people were like, oh, he's sewing up the MVP. Lamar Jackson said, hold up. So he's right in the conversation as well now. And now we've got people debating whether it's Lamar Jackson or it's Josh Allen for the MVP. But here, I just want to give you a few tidbits of information when it comes to that race. Of course, Josh Allen, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year, 63.8 completion percentage, 3,549 yards he has thrown for, 514 yards rushing, also 11 TDs on the ground as well. With Lamar Jackson, 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 67.9 completion percentage. Keep in mind, believe these are career highs for Lamar Jackson. The career low in interception, career highs in passing touchdowns. 3,955 yards, also 852 yards rushing, and 4 touchdowns. Now, if you go simply off those numbers, you would think that Lamar Jackson is far and away the MVP. But unfortunately, it doesn't go all the way just off of the numbers and statistics, because if that was the case, then there would be 2,000-yard running backs that would be MVPs. And we saw that even in those years, it's gone to quarterbacks. So just to give you a little bit of kind of perspective there, if you look at the records, Josh Allen's 12-3. One of those losses, of course, came to the Baltimore Ravens, which they have an 11-5 record. So keep that nugget in mind. And besides Josh Allen, I don't know if I can recognize anybody on that offense that could really hurt me during a game. I mean, you have a James Cook that's got from 928 yards rushing. He definitely is doing his thing as a running back. And then you have Shakir, who's leading them in receiving with 796 yards. They don't have anybody else that's over 500 yards receiving. Yet this team is still 12-3. Lamar Jackson, of course, he has Mr. Derrick Henry, who's at 1,783 yards, pretty much double what James Cook has, and 14 touchdowns. You got Zay Flowers with 1,047 yards and 4 touchdowns. And, just to throw in there, Rashad Bateman, 680 yards and 8 touchdowns. So if you look at the supporting cast of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, I would say that Lamar Jackson's supporting cast is definitely significantly better than the supporting cast of Mr. Josh Allen. Yet here we are with Josh Allen with a 12-3 record and Lamar Jackson with 11-5 record. If you take Lamar off of that team, of course they would be a different team. They still would have talent, but they'd be a different team. And you can't say they would be where they are. Josh, you can't say where Josh. You take him off that team, they would be probably in the lottery. Well, there isn't an NFL lottery, but they would be pretty much in the lottery, in my opinion. They'd be racing for the number 1 spot. But both great quarterbacks, both great seasons. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say Josh Allen probably be the MVP up to this point. That could change, but up to this point, I would say Josh Allen's the MVP. Kaila, do you have some thoughts there?
Well, if you've me from before Stacy and I started the She Shed, and even with us talking through the She Shed, I am a fan of the quarter black. So I mean, I am rooting for everybody black in this situation, and and that's not even with me trying to be funny or political in any way. I mean, I just feel like every year, um, only talking highly of his supporting cast members, but he's showing us that he can improve and that he is more than as people have taken back a running back. He's proven is skilled at the quarterback position. Josh Allen is. We love to see him succeeding and everything, but I have to give it to Lamar.
Gotcha, gotcha. It's going to be a hotly contested race for sure. And I mean, both quarterbacks have been excellent this season for sure. And, I can't say before the season I would have had the Buffalo Bills at 12-3, especially with all the pieces they lost and things like that. But hey, here we are. Both of these teams are doing their thing. And speaking of doing their thing, you and Stacy are doing your thing with the She Shed podcast. We're going to kind of transition and talk about that. So, how did you and Stacy kind of connect when it came to the podcast realm?
So we were actually on a podcast prior to the She Shed and kind of became friends through that. And then when that show came to an end, kind of talking off to the side, like, hey, I feel like we should into the podcast game. Like we have so many ideas, but message thread and our Instagram thread, like we just kept sharing each other and kind of bouncing ideas back and girl, we really need to go ahead and get this started. So over the summer came into a both kind of cross and we're like, okay, let's just go ahead and make the jump and get this started.
Okay. All right. All right. So, no plenty are wondering, how did you come up with the name The She Shed?
I think it's kind of a mixture of things. We kind of ended previous show saying just kind of how we appreciated friendship and kind of the safe space where we about sports and entertainment. And I mean, if you've listened to the last two episodes, sometimes we even let you all in a little bit on our personal lives. We're not working in the sports realm. So we just felt like the She Shed was kind of befitting of all of that.
Okay. All right. Definitely. I had that question, and I'm pretty sure some of my listeners definitely had that question as well. In regards to the name of the show. I mean, I definitely enjoy the show. Y'all definitely do keep it real. Y'all definitely do bring all different avenues into the show as well. But speaking of bringing a different avenue in this show, we're going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, your Indianapolis Colts. But we're going to take a quick commercial break first on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. Promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash. All right, and we're back on Touring the AFC South, episode 312, and like it's titled, Indy in the AFC South. So, of course, we do have to talk about those Indianapolis Colts. Now, Let's get into it. The Colts are at 7-8. They are still mathematically alive for the playoffs, but they're going to need a lot of things to happen. But the first thing is they're going to win the next two games, starting off with the New York Giants. Now, Kaila, I have to ask, what did you think of the team start the season, before the season, and what they were going to be? And what are your thoughts on them now?
It's surprising consistent. I did not have my hopes set high. I feel like, with Anthony Richardson after an injury, and essentially kind of finishing out here, since he missed that whole back half, you're going to struggle a little bit. It's going to take them a minute to kind of make sure they gel correctly. Receivers need to be catching the ball. And then, he ended up having to take a back seat for a little bit. Flacco, which, every season I feel asking why the Colts decide they need to find a 30-plus-year-old quarterback to play. So, again, been not expecting them to do too decently well, to the point of holding my breath on the fact that we can win out. Indy, I chill, stay off my head, need to be honest about how the rest of the season is going to play out.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting experience. And speaking of interesting experience, now you did bring up Mr. Anthony Richardson. This is his first full season. He did not make it through last season. Of course, different, injuries took him out for the season, especially the shoulder. He's had some highs and he's had some lows this season as well. So what's your current feeling on Anthony Richardson right now?
I think there still needs to be a lot of maturing there. I feel like definitely been sneaks of it this season, but I mean, you decide to pull yourself out the game because you're tired. And I think there just needs to be a sense of maturity. There, I said it's kind of like he's trying to make up for those missteps in his rookie season. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of grace. In this past week's game, you could kind of see him talk to older quarterbacks, just kind of trying to pick their brain. But I still think some side on the field. But I believe he's been ruled out for Sunday. So again, still kind of concerning that injuries are lining him.
Yeah, it's definitely rough. He's built like a tight end, can run fast like a wide receiver, but plays quarterback and has a rocket arm. But the injuries, they will make even the greatest looking player sit on the sideline, and that's a rough thing. And as far as I've heard, actually, I believe he's questionable, but I think it's linked, like you said, leaning towards probably not playing, and that means that we get Flacco back here in the pocket. I know I'm not gonna call him his other name. I call him. I'm gonna leave him alone on this show.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt my feelings that I would love us to stop picking up elderly quarterbacks.
I honestly, I think the thing for Anthony Richardson to be in there at all times at quarterback, I think that the Indianapolis Colts need to adopt the Bomani Jones way of thinking. And I don't know are you familiar with that? So you're not familiar with that one? Okay, now I'm gonna give you here's what Bomani Jones said. If you got a black quarterback, the best way to keep that black quarterback in is to have a backup quarterback that's also a black quarterback. Because if it's a backup, if you notice over the years, when black quarterbacks have struggles, they're always calling for the backup. But if it's a black quarterback to backup, they're really not calling for the backup that much. So kind of noticed that. And I noticed that, and I heard Bomani say that, and so I kind of dug into it a little bit, and he's actually right. He's actually 100% right, which is crazy, but it's true. You know, that's something else to think about, right?
Right. Just started watching the evolution of a Black Amazon Prime, I think it is. So just kind of, also the road to get to this point has been interesting. But I mean, if you've listened to the She Shed and prior shows that I've been, you know that I am a huge Jacoby Brissett fan. I'm still personally sad that we got rid of him, but I mean, I feel like a good person to learn from. I feel like every on coaches and other players are saying much of a good leader he is, and a good locker room guy. But they don't pay me to questions.
I hear you there. I understand. I'll say this though, Jacoby Brissett, he's been a starter. He's been a backup. He hasn't been necessarily outstanding, but he hasn't necessarily been horrible. But I will say this: he is surviving the quarterback game, and I salute him, sir. Salute him. Salute you, Mister Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, I definitely, it was a great move for him to leave. I remember when he played for University of Florida, and he left to go to NC State, which is quite possibly the best move he could have ever done for his career. So, yeah. So, but I'm going to get off of talking about Anthony Richardson. I'm going to move over to Mr. Shane Steichen. Now, the energy was high when he first got brought in, and he said we're going to pass to I guess the lead and run to win. That comment, and you had Colts fans like, okay, we got Jonathan Taylor back there. Oh, we about to see him go take off. Well, things change in about a year and change is what I can say, because of course there are some criticisms of him, maybe the play calling, maybe the kind of, in my opinion, watching the freezing out of Jonathan Taylor at times. But do you think the criticism of Shane Steichen is where it needs to be, or is too high or too low? What are your thoughts on the criticism of Shane Steichen so far this
I
season?
mean, I feel like if you a Colts fan, you're always gonna be very full of coaches. I mean, especially if you were the years where you had Peyton, Marvin, Dallas, you're high. And these last few years we just struggled. And we coaches trying new things and it doesn't seem to work out. So I mean at this point I think it's just part of the course. Indianapolis Colts head coach. I think we're just of losing and not being in the playoffs is not like us.
Mm-hmm. I hear you there. And one person that y'all are hoping to think is, or thinking he's not like yo, word to Kendrick Lamar there, by the way. But one person you're probably thinking or hoping is not like yo anymore would be GM Chris Ballard. Now he's caught a lot of flack. Of course, this off season he brought back everybody. He brought back the bathroom attendants and people like that and signed them to new contracts too to continue their jobs. I'm joking, by the way. I don't know that information. But as far as Chris Ballard, are you, like a lot of Colt fans that I've come across, ready to see that man go?
I'm I'm not ready for him to go yet. I'm ready for him to the wallet a little bit. Um, like I said earlier, but also very serious. I would love for us to quit getting contracts for these elderly quarterbacks. I'd love to see them develop somebody like a Sam Elling. Maybe he can step up into that kind of leadership, mentorship for Anthony Richardson a little bit more. But again, like I said, he just bumped back to third string quarterback. Um, and so that's one area I kind of want to see how and if Chris can, do better in, but also, is it you give up your Grover Stewarts or your DeForest Buckners, um, to make room for, younger talent, but also bring up like your Twitty pays for more of a leadership as well.
Yeah, that the one thing I always say when I talk about Chris Ballard, or I'll say when I talk with Colts fans about Chris Ballard is, you see the people that shop at the big fancy shops, they go to the Publix or something like that. It's a little bit more pricey, things like that. He always goes to the Save a Lot or something like that. And, he gonna buy 3 or 4 things for the amount you could buy at Publix. It might not be as good, but in his mind, he's like, okay, cool. I can get this 3 or 4 different things. It might be just as good as that. But it's sometimes you need to go ahead and pony up and go to that Publix. And that's where I'm kind of at when it comes to Chris Ballard and looking at the Colts team, building up their team. Got to stop shopping at Save-A-Lot. And there's nothing wrong with Save-A-Lot, by the way, anybody that's listening. There's nothing wrong with Save-A-Lot. I'm just comparing the prices of the 2 stores. But, got to quit shopping at Save-A-Lot. Go ahead and move on over to Publix. Go on, spend that bread. You got it. So that's kind of my thinking on him. I mean, it's
last few games go.
What's that?
How these last few games go?
Yeah, we'll definitely see when it comes to Mr. Chris Ballard. But there are 3 other teams we do have to talk about when it comes to the AFC South. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to start it off talking about the leader of the division, the winner of the division, the Houston Texans, on tour in the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We'll be right back. A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business. All right, and we are back on this episode of Touring the AFC South. Like I mentioned before the show, or before the break, I should say, we do have to talk about the rest of the AFC South. And of course, we're going to talk about the first team in the division, or the team in the first spot in the division. That would be the Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans have wrapped up the division. They're going to the playoffs. They're going to host a playoff game. But they have not been very impressive at all to me. I mean, just watching them, especially in the last game, 31-2, you don't put up any offensive points in the game at all. 0. And this is what happens. It just looks, it doesn't look like this team is together. And plenty of people will say about the injuries and things like that. And I totally understand that. But they were looking a little rough before the injuries as well. That's what people are not mentioning or talking about. I mean, what are your thoughts on them and just how kind of strange they've looked this season compared to last season?
Hey, look, I am here for everybody, for the Colts to lose. I am praying on everybody's downfall. So I'm okay with how they looked over the but I don't know. I feel like, a lot of people are saying slump of a season for CJ. But I mean, young quarterback still trying to find and navigate his way. I mean, I feel like seeing one of your key down and one of your friends in the locker room go down is something I'm sure he had on his bingo card this season. So, I mean, again, kind of putting him in the same boat, Anthony Richardson, and at the top of the show, they're still young, they're still new. mature in some areas. And I think the season doing exactly that for CJ.
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I did say before the season that maybe I didn't say necessarily a sophomore slump, but I did say that he may kind of come back to earth because defenses have seen him a little bit more, so maybe they'll figure a few things out. I don't know if it's necessarily that they figured a few things out. I think it's more that him being a little off at times, and then also with the accuracy, and then also the thing I'm looking at is his offensive line is worse than they were last year, and that all that coupled with the injuries, it's not making them look any better. But like I said, they're going to the playoffs. They figured it out enough to make it there at least. So, I guess hopefully we for Texans fans, I should say, they don't see a repeat performance against whoever they play like they played on Christmas Day versus the Baltimore Ravens, because that was Bubba Sparks ugly. I was watching. Mm. But the another team, of course, that definitely made some noise when it came to paying people this offseason. That would be the Tennessee Titans. Now, they spent $228 million cap space, or well, not cap space, just $228 million in terms of total contracts, I believe. Now, they have not necessarily played up to those millions that they spent. They're facing Jacksonville in the battle for who's going to finish in third place on this upcoming Sunday. Now, with the money that they spent, did you expect them to be kind of as kind of not together and not gelled as they are this season?
Um, I feel like be my theme of this segment. But I mean, I feel like our conference is going through, you know, needs to get their lives in order. I mean, new
Mm-hmm.
coaching staff, and again, you've got a young quarterback, veteran guys on defense, and players like Danico and him going to the Texans. So, I mean, again, just year of transition. I mean, I guess is the best thing. Titans. I don't know if I necessarily expected them to this poorly. I feel like they're always a very tight position for the Colts. But again, I think they're just figure things out.
Yeah, definitely watching them. It's been interesting to watch. It's like there are a couple plays here and a couple plays there that changed the whole stratosphere of games that they played this season. And it's not like they're way off, but it's just, winning teams make those different plays to win those games, and they aren't making them. And, speaking of winning plays, Will Levis didn't necessarily start the season off with a winning play. Of course, throwing the interception versus the Bears that led to the loss. And he's had his ups and his downs. He's had probably more downs than ups. Had a stretch there where he was playing pretty well, and then all of a sudden, the bottom fell out there. So as far as Will Levis, I know plenty of people have already had their thoughts on him and already saw his downfall, or foresaw it or wanted to see it coming. I'm not saying I'm one of those, but I'm just saying what I've heard. What are your thoughts on him? He's been benched right now. He's not the starter anymore. Mason Rudolph is a starter. So what are your thoughts on him? Do you think it's over pretty much for him when it comes to the Tennessee Titans?
I mean, I feel like I'll answer that with a question. I mean, get. I mean, I will be the first one to admit I don't necessarily college football all that closely until I'm in the season. But I just feel like are they going younger and see who they can pick up in the draft, or are they going to like the Colts and go after somebody older and see if that can for a little bit? So I think, to be honest, they're better to just hold on to him a little bit longer and see how things go. With him taking some time on the bench.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you there. It's going to be interesting because the Titans more than likely will have a top 5 draft pick. And with that being the case, of course, there is a quarterback named Shador Sanders and a quarterback named Cam Ward. Will they go there or will they spend the money? Which, despite spending how much money they've spent or it's talked about, they do actually have cap space and they probably could go get a veteran quarterback like a Sam Darnold or someone of that nature if they wanted to. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the Tennessee Titans do at the quarterback position when it comes to this offseason. Speaking of another team and this offseason, I want to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Boy, oh boy. Now they got bad coaching or frustration between the coaches and the fans. You got frustration between Press Taylor, who's the offensive coordinator, and fans saying that Doug Peterson should have took back the play calling duties. You've got players that they brought in on contracts and not necessarily been what they thought they would be, and that would be that would be Savage from the Packers, and that would be Eric Armstead from the San Francisco 49ers. And then you have just different pieces that they brought in. I will say this. Brian Thomas Jr. has been everything and more that I thought he would be in his rookie season. But it's just altogether a lot of different things that are not going right in Jacksonville. What do you make of them and that franchise and all just the mess that's going on there?
To be quite honest, I have not given the Jaguars any bit of thought this season. So it's just a testament of the mess that is going on. But I feel like they just little, house cleanse and get rid of a few folks, make adjustments. Because I feel like we have too much about Trevor at all this season, which again is shocking to me to even have a conversation about the AFC South and not say a million times in different ways. So maybe they just need to do some, early spring cleaning.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about Trevor. And, to me, he's been in the NFL and he was sold to us as this generational quarterback. But when I'm watching him, I don't see a generational quarterback. I see a guy that's playing, but he's had injury issues, which I get. And then you have people that are make reasons why he's not successful, or the receiver's not running the route, or this happening or that happening. But he's getting paid the second most on average in the NFL at the quarterback position to Joe Burrow. I think if I'm paying a quarterback that much money, I think I need him to figure some things out and be, on that type of level. Because to me, this is what I gather when watching him. I think he can be a solid quarterback. Do I think he's a star quarterback? No, because I haven't seen it consistently yet. Because every year it's a roller coaster ride when you're watching. You'll have a great stretch and then you'll have a terrible stretch. Like, for example, the year they went to the playoffs with Trevor Lawrence, they started off terribly, ended up great. And then that next season, they started off great, ended up terribly. So there's been no consistency. And I gave him a mulligan for the first year. That was with Urban Meyer. But am I wrong to think that he's not this generational quarterback that he was sold us to be? And secondly, am I wrong to think that he probably will never be that guy? He'll probably be a average to maybe a little bit above average quarterback at his best.
Sorry,
Kaila, you there?
Sorry, I did not hear your question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was asking as far as Trevor Lawrence, do I see him as a average quarterback. I think he'll probably be at best average to maybe a little bit above average. Am I wrong for thinking that with all of the different things that he's had to battle through and just his different things that have happened in Jacksonville during his career?
No, like I said, I feel like in a discussion about the AFC South and not having more positive to say about him, definitely proves that maybe we hyped him too much, and maybe set our ex a little too high to the point now we're just kind of in his role and if he's taking this job seriously.
I mean, honestly, I'm not going to say he's I'm not going to say he's as bad as any other particular quarterbacks in the past for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not going to go as far as that, but I'm wondering eventually if he's going to be mentioned in those quarterbacks' names. I'm not going to mention their names. I could mention one, but I'm not going to do him like that. Not this early. But I did have one other question for you. The AFC South, I mean, I thought it would be better this season, but I was obviously wrong. So, I mean, when is this resurgence going to happen in this division? I mean, it's just, it makes you scratch your head that so many people have been drafted early. You drafted a bunch of quarterbacks. You drafted defensive players to rush the passer. You drafted cornerbacks. You brought in high-priced free agents, and yet still this division is struggling. I mean, so when's the resurgence? Do you see a resurgence coming in maybe a year or two, or am I just mistaken when I think that could potentially happen?
I mean, I feel throughout the show we've talked about, some pretty heavy hitting players in, different areas of the league. It's just that, the teams in the AFC South are terrible. If there's just so many other dominant teams in the league, it's just, further proving that maybe, teams need to open up the wallet a little bit more and being able, or more high prices for blockbuster players and stop being essentially swapping pieces. Like you said, we've got, your Lamar Jacksons, your Josh Allens, your Holmes, your CJ Strouds, you've got these top tier names. And I mean, even CJ's not showing up like we thought he should. I feel like it might be a minute before we get it together.
Oh boy, we're gonna hope and pray that they get it together. But boy, oh boy, I still have confidence in some of the teams in the AFC South. But boy, oh boy, they got to get it together. They got to get it together. And it's crazy. We talked about this whole division, and we didn't even mention that there's two of the top defensive linemen in the NFL in this division, in terms of interior defensive linemen, and DeForest Buckner and Jeffrey Simmons. We didn't even mention their names during this entire show. Crazy, right?
Hey, I mean, like I said, maybe we need to reevaluate some old tracks.
Oh boy. I still love Jeff. I think Jeff still can make a great impact. And him and T Sweat inside, aka Meatloaf. That's that's T Sweat's nickname. That's his nickname is Meatloaf. That's his aunt gave him that nickname. But those two are going to be incredible, I think, together. But I definitely wonder. I do wonder. And I haven't asked Jeff this. This is me just thinking this off the top of my head. But I wonder how much the losing is weighing on him, and I wonder if eventually because he signed an extension, was a year or two ago, and I wonder if he reaches the end of that extension here in Nashville. I do wonder that. I don't know this for certain, but I just do wonder those questions. I think DeForest probably will be in Indianapolis, but I just wonder about Jeff and if he's gonna want to move on eventually. So we'll see what happens. But we have reached the end of the show, but not quite the end of the show. We are going to bring up this now. The 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice segment of the show. And are you ready, Kaila? I've got these 5 questions ready for you.
Yep, let's go.
All right. Titans or Jaguars? You got to root for one of the teams. Which one are you choosing? What's that?
Titans.
Titans. Okay. Oh, I didn't expect that one. All right. I totally didn't expect that one. Okay, next one. Marvel or DC? Which comic book movies are you taking?
Marvel.
Yes, I gave you an easy one because I can't think of many DC movies that I actually liked. Vacation during the summer, L.A. or or New York City. I'm sorry.
Um, LA.
Okay, all right. New York City is nice in the summer though. It is. All right, the next one we got uh SZA or Summer Walker. Which artist would you take?
Ooh, that's tough because I've actually been playing both of heavy in the last few weeks.
Hmm.
But I say Scissor right now because I feel like I've played 30 for 30 times in the last few days.
Yeah, it is a good song. That is a good song for sure. Last one I got Kevin Durant or LeBron James. Which player are you taking at their peak?
Um, just because of where I live currently.
Hmm. You would take KD, but I will say this: peak LeBron James in Miami was pretty doggone tough. Woo, goodness. But
It
yeah.
was, like I said, I am currently in Phoenix, so I've got to go for the local team at the moment.
All right. That is 5 questions, 2 answers, and one choice. You're off the hot seat. Kaila, can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and all the great, wonderful things you have going on?
Yeah. So on Instagram and Twitter, you can find me at Indy IND underscore redhead. Um, and then also here, me and my co-host Stacy J on the She Shed, and we are the She at the She Shed Pod.
All right. All right. Well, I thank you for coming on. Of course, I am the host of the show, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter, Word to Prince. You can also find me on Instagram and threads at that's THA, not THE underscore general underscore MP. Tour in the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. We're also on YouTube at the Mike Patton podcast. Just want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Tour in the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.
Bye.